20 years of that, I was a small business owner doing environmental investigations. And in 2014, identified, I'm also going back to school for a master's degree right now in a public health related field. About 2 years ago, in 2014, or 3 years ago, I identified a pediatric cancer cluster in Rye and reported it to the state of New Hampshire. In about 2 years, after dogging them for about 2 years, I got the answer back that it was in fact a CDC-defined cancer cluster in children. 2 different forms of rare cancers in the children. And Governor Hassan formed a task force to look for environmental triggers for the cancers. And I was asked to sit on that task force. And so we went about looking for environmental triggers for the cancers. And one of the first issues that came up to the surface was Coakley Landfill. It's a big old landfill that was a Superfund site. That is a Superfund site. It was closed in the mid-1990s with just a cap on the top. So over time, businesses and residences were built up around the landfill and started pumping water out from under the landfill. And so it's now contaminating most of the towns around landfills, drinking water, and also surface water. So this was a big concern of mine, and the reason I talked about this a little bit more is because over the course of the investigation for the through the task force, we were pushing ahead to try to get something done, and we're still pushing ahead to try to get something done. But now, with the election of Trump and the changes that are happening in EPA, we're seeing the real effects of Trump's decisions and appointments on the federal level affecting us here in our community. And what that means is they now send one non-technical person to our meetings who's just a public relations person who doesn't pay attention, doesn't have answers for us anymore. So we're really seeing the effects of this on the local level. And so this really concerned me, and I was surprised, like everyone else, that Carol decided not to rerun this election cycle. But I looked at it and said, well, with all the stuff going on the federal level with the EPA and all the issues around women and immigrant rights and things like that, and all the discourse that's really, degraded over the last few years on the national level, I just decided it was time to try and step up. So I threw my hat in the ring. So I'm a big supporter of environmental issues. I want to fight for against dismantling of the EPA on a federal level. I want to protect our public health because I think this is really a serious issue that could affect, many communities. We now think there's 625 bases across the U.S. that have this kind of drinking water contamination like we see here in the seacoast. So this is a federal issue. This is across the country, and we really need to push back on some of the discourse about attacks on science and women in general. And I'm concerned about things like making sure our families can provide for their children, for their, without working 1 million hours a week. I want them to be able to spend time with their families and provide, a good home situation for our families. So I agree with all the stuff that Tom was saying about, what's happening on the federal level. So that's why I decided to step up. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll be around for a couple of minutes.